Peace, peace, peace. I am Philip Roundtree, and you are tuned into the December 13th edition of Rhetorically Speaking. Props to those of you who are watching on Facebook Live. Shouts to those of you who are tuned in on YouTube Live. Both y'all, please hit that share button, hit the subscribe button. My daughter is no longer in private school. That can tell you how long ago this was that I did it outside of last week with the good brother Dr. Caleb Stevens. But before that, my daughter was still going to that Christian school, getting that good costly education. Now she back with the heathens, right? She back with the Abbott Elementary. I think that's the school. It's supposed to be based on a school here in Philly. But I feel like is reminiscent of every school here in Philly. But check it out. It's definitely a dope show by Quinta Brunson, who is from West Philadelphia, like the great Will Smith. So today we have a dope show on tap for you. Listen, this brother, man, I wanted to call him James Brown, right? Because he's like he's not the hardest working man in show business, but he's definitely the hardest working man in mental health and helping destigmatize what it means to be a black man in mental health. He's a father, he's a veteran, he's a philanthropist, he's an author, and the founder of the movement Men to Heal. He got some. I see he got some other dope stuff, some cheesy dates board game stuff that we gonna talk about that. But I want to welcome to Rhetorically Speaking, the hashtag You Good Man episode, therapist James Harris. How you feeling, brother?
God, my Commonwealth brother. What's going on, man?
Word. Yo, it's funny you say that. Like I was listening to a podcast last week with Bomani Jones and Howard Bryant, sports podcast, and they was like, "Yo,
Mm.
can you name all the Commonwealths?" And I was like, I'm sitting there thinking, like, well, damn, what the hell is a Commonwealth, right? Like we got Pennsylvania, Virginia, right? So that's where you are. But I'm like, yo, first, I don't know what a Commonwealth is. And I don't know any of them outside of Virginia and Pennsylvania. So do you know what a Commonwealth is?
So, from what I understand, well, to clear it up, I only know the two, our two, so it's the same. But from what I understand, I think all the laws and regulations came from, the Queen and England and all the other stuff, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
But,
All right. So you like
you
10 steps ahead of me already. Because as soon as you said the
yeah,
Queen, that's when I shut the, yeah, the colonies and all of that. So,
yeah, that's
okay.
probably a history lesson that somebody got to do, man.
Yeah, that's why they trying to stop teaching our history and Black history and which is the history of America and I guess trying to teach that more maybe like I don't know. But listen, brother. First, I'm a firm believer in giving folk they flowers, so I appreciate you. Thank you for taking the time to come out and join us. Like I said, you somebody I've watched in like everywhere I see, like you popped up somewhere here and there. I'm like, yo, do you ever sleep? You know what I mean? But I recognize that for you, and let me know if I'm wrong. Like this is cathartic for you, and I think that it's important in your mental health journey for you to be as active and expressive and talking about mental health. Is that a fair assessment?
Very fair assessment, man. Because I mean, for the people who don't know my story, I was doing entrepreneurship before I became a therapist. But my therapeutic journey started when I was younger. I was awarded a state, so therapy was mandatory. No, it wasn't a pleasant experience, man. Uh,
Wait,
you,
but before you go on, I'm sorry, because I don't want to automatically assume people know what ward of the state mean. So can you explain? Because I think that's a critical part in your journey. So can you
yeah.
explain to them what ward of the state is?
So awarded the state is foster care and group home. Pretty much, you are entity of the state. The state has guardianship of you. So at that time, this was 20 plus years ago. Therapy was mandatory, and it wasn't a pleasant experience. I'm this young black kid from the projects, and all the therapists were older white people, men or women. So it wasn't a cohesive collective experience. It was a lot of cultural differences, whether it's age, ethnicity, and just not understanding. Like for me, I viewed it as a check in the box for the system, opposed to let's actually help the clientele, or the people that we're
Mm.
serving. So for me, that's where it started. And now my passion, is I want to ensure that I'm building that rapport and creating that solid foundation for the people I serve. And then fast forward later, man, joined the army, 8 years, two deployments, one Iraq, one Afghanistan, and the same thing happened. Uh, no, the therapist at that time at the VA didn't have combat experience either, so that's why a lot of veterans tend to not go to therapy, or they prefer to go to the groups. So for me, coming back to like, yo, this is something I got to do, whether that's helping a young boy that's in that's developing and want to pursue therapy or want to learn something different, or that my fellow veteran that want the help but just don't know who to go to because it's not a somebody that he can discuss certain things with and feel like it's validated or appreciated. So that's what my journey is here. So yeah,
Word.
I guess in a sense, for what you just said, it is a relief for me. It's that gratifying feeling of being able to serve the people, um, in which I was looking towards or looking for when I was coming up in the system.
Word. Word. So you brought up two specific time periods for you, right? And when I think about what they are, we're talking about being in foster care, child welfare. We know that that can be a traumatic experience. And then when we're talking about first being in the military, number one, right? And then being a black man in the military, right? Like the Black Panthers, one of their 10 points was no black man belongs in a white man's army, because they recognize that the war that they're fighting on the outside, right? They got to come back home and still be treated like second class citizens, and that's what so many of our ancestors and shoot current veterans, such as yourself, have to deal with. So can you talk about like juxtaposing like those traumatic experience? Because I would think that going into war is traumatic, right? Even if you're just going over there as a nurse or something like that, but going over into combat, that can be traumatic. So can you speak to that?
Yeah. So trauma, is a lot of people don't know what trauma is. Trauma is a extreme stressful situation that you can witness, let alone be a part of. But for me, I was actually in combat on both my deployments. Man, I was a gunner, so I was a combat engineer, and I was in Iraq '07, '08 when the surge happened. That was one of the deadliest times
Mm.
on record in Iraq. And my unit, we lost 4 people, man.
Oh wow.
Um, like I said, I was a gunner. So that traumatic experience was definitely real. Not only that, just the military itself was a traumatic experience to me because it was a culture shock. One, I'd never been around that many white people, you know what I'm saying? And for me, it was a situation where I joined the military for survival. I emancipated myself at 16 from the group home. So 16 to 18, I was homeless, you know what I mean? So when I got to college my freshman year, spring break, winter break, summer break, I was sneaking back in the dorm room. I was fortunate. I went to HBCU, St. Paul's College, which no longer exists. So it was one dorm for males, one dorm for women, and my dorm was right on the first floor. So I was able to sneak back in with my refrigerator and my microwave, little portable joint, during summer break, winter break, and stuff like that. So my sophomore year, I made the decision like, yo, I'm not about to do this again. So that's when I joined the army. And then of course, I'm again survival mode. I'm here to eat. I'm here to have somewhere to sleep, save my money to make sure my brother and sister good because they're younger, they were still in the system. So for me, that's what it
Mm-hmm.
was. So that you talking about trauma, you talking about grief, you talking about depression, you talking about so many other things going on in addition to these superior people yelling at you,
Oh
putting you
wow.
through rigorous tasks, and on paper and in those tasks I excel. I remember in basic training, getting standards, getting different, making different benchmarks, and being in leadership positions and stuff like that. And it continued on throughout my journey within the military. I did my 8 years, got out, man. E5 sergeant, promotable, but I didn't pursue it beyond that just because I knew like it was so much more of my community that needed me, my family that needed me. And then to be honest with you, man, I just grew from a place of I don't really like authority, not that type of authority. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
I don't really like the structure is cool, but the type of authority that they think that people still need. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't have to yell at me, you don't have to direct and dictate certain things to me. You can talk to me like I'm talking to you, opposed to that traditional military sense. Like I wasn't with that no more. You know what I'm saying? I guess
Mm,
I became too rebellious and too independent for certain structures, and that's why my entrepreneurship is the way it is, and that's why like I do what I want to do, I wear what I want to wear, I talk how I want to talk because I don't want that structure. I don't want that. This is what professionalism is. Nah, you can do whatever you want to do. You know what I'm saying? Like I own multiple businesses. I'm in city hall doing building permits, grilled up and talking my urban vernacular, master's degree, some doctoral classes. I don't want people to feel like that white man standard is what it is. It's so many different um, walks of life that one can have and still be eclectic and educated and so many other things.
word, word. That's well said. Well said. I think I guess I'm just fascinated about this journey, right? Because reading the bio and knowing you a little bit, right, and hearing about dealing with foster care and just everything that comes with that. You talk about that 16 to 18 period where you emancipated yourself, and maybe the reason why I bring it up is just because we a lot of times we overlook the adolescents, right? We overlook their experiences as far as teenagers. See that, especially for black boys. See, I'm about to say black men, right? We talking 16 to 18, and I'm about to say black men. Why? Because this is how we've been conditioned to view them. No, black boys and black girls, and so I'm thinking about just that experience and how that didn't sour you, or if it did sour you, just to this idea of protecting my wellness and continuing to work towards goals.
So in hindsight, I guess sitting in the seat that we're sitting in now, I can say that it robbed me of adolescence. You know what I'm saying? It forced me to grow up earlier, forced me to mature earlier. That emotional maturity wasn't there as it should have been, just being placed in certain positions and certain things that adults should have been doing at those time periods. I had to do those things, which is good. I'm fortunate for it. I've developed, but how we can view now, like something was not being substituted or something was overcompensated in those areas in which I should have been an adolescent. I should have just been, worrying about prom and worrying about
Yeah,
playing sports or getting good grades. Like I was literally worried about trying to eat, you know what I'm saying? But emancipating myself at 16 was definitely my doing. And looking back, I wouldn't have done it any different way. I remember being 14, sitting on the edge of the bed, and I would my same quote to this day: "If they can feed you, they can starve you." And I live by that, you know what I'm saying? So I just made the decision not to have anybody in a position to, have all that power over me. So I much rather have that power myself, whether it's positive or negative, you know what I'm saying? Um, and then at 16 came, I was like, yeah, I'm out. So, signing my permission slips in school, going back and forth with the teachers, like, yo, I can sign my own permission slip. Like I'm my own guardian. So
yeah.
it was that time period to when social services had to, like, I want to say they had to mail the papers because fax machines and emails wasn't as accurate as it is now. So
Hmm.
it took a couple months for them to actually mail the paperwork from Department of Social Services. So that was a whole battle trying to tell my teachers, like, yo, like, I don't know who to tell you to call about my grades or whatever. Like I'm my
Wow.
own
Yeah.
guardian, so that was a stint in itself. But outside of that, man, I definitely enjoyed the journey. I embraced the journey, and I'm fortunate because, you know, it developed me. But of course, I lacked in some areas as far as that, being a kid. You know what I'm saying? Like just doing regular stuff, I guess.
Word, word. And so, at first, thank you for your transparency and letting us in on your resilience, right? Because that's what it takes to be able to get to where we are today. What is it, December 13th at 8:19 p.m. I always talk about how it's amazing that we get to the moment that we're in, right? It's no fail short of whatever most high you believe in, right? And our own perseverance. And so with that, the reason why I wanted to have you on is I know you do a lot of work with men. If they don't know and they you might not be able to see, I don't want to take it for granted that everybody can view your t-shirt and view your hat.
Yeah.
promoter extraordinaire. You know what I mean? Promoter extraordinaire. The work that you do with men, right? How has your personal experience informed the work that you do with men?
So for me to be real with you, like that vulnerability equating to weakness doesn't really exist on my behalf. Like I definitely ensure that I'm vulnerable, I'm open, I'm emotionally available, not only for my family but to the public as well. And I think that's what's lacking in a lot of different areas. People want a hard exterior from men, but deep down, that man wants to be able to express himself without being, demonized for doing such or it's called soft or weak or whatever the case is. And it shouldn't have to happen once that male get a family or once he's in a position to where he's working with all women. It should happen naturally because again, like these are human qualities, not just gender qualities. And I think society oftentimes view them as such, like, oh, this is for men, this is for women, and that put people in a box. And then you have all these other statistics that's going on, whether that's um like a lot of women being sexual abused, but not a lot of men saying, "Yo, I'm a perpetrator." You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Or I'm a rapist, or I harass somebody. So it's a fine line between that. Like if a woman is saying these things happen, but no men are holding other men accountable, or no validation for those things, like where's the line? So for me, I feel that expressing it and assisting other men to express their needs, their wants, their emotions, their feelings. And something I often say on my page is feel your feelings, not just those, oh, he's mad, he's upset, oh, he's happy. Like feel all of them, and it should be expressed and it should be validated from the people around you.
Word, word, and we definitely going to delve a little bit deeper into that. But I'm curious, like, and I know my work with men and what the response is, but what has been the response from men that you've worked with?
So not only do I get responses from the men themselves, but of course vicariously, uh, the children, the wives, the partners. Been even with my book, man, is a review on there. This lady, they've been married 45 years, and she said, "Listen, this is the most my husband and I ever exchanged dialogue on feelings and emotions and stuff like that, because of your book." So for me, that was gratifying in itself. I'm 35. They've been married longer than I've been born. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So for that to happen, I just was overwhelmed. I was excited. And the tool has began to continue to work for itself. But of course, a lot of fathers, a lot of men themselves say, "Yo, I'm glad I was able to break the cycle. I'm glad I was able to show my little one something different." Or I'm a better teammate now. I'm interacting now. I'm okay with talking to my coaches now when I'm not feeling a certain way. I'm not worried about sitting out a game because I'm having these thoughts or I'm sad or feeling a certain way. Prior to this, I was thinking like I had to be tough or be hard or whatever. And I'm playing the game. I'm not feeling nothing. I'm numb. I'm emotionally detached. I'm so many other things. So I get a lot of those variations of like, I'm happy that I'm able to just be opposed to, fronting and not being authentic within yourself. Like, I don't think they intentionally think they're not being authentic, but it's that byproduct of, oh man, I got to do this anyway because they looking or they gonna call me XYZ.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now it's more a response of, no, I'm good. So I guess it's the boundaries around it, but enforcing those boundaries to saying, hey, you know what, I ain't really feeling it. I'm gonna sit this one out and not worrying about people saying, oh, you weak, or you can't handle XYZ or what. So I get that a lot.
Okay. Okay. And so with that said, right, and you getting a positive and healthy response from brothers, can you speak to just the harm that not being expressive in a healthy way, what that can do to a brother?
So, I mean, for a long time, people thought the mind and body wasn't connected, and we know probably within the last 10 to 15 years, there's been extensive research saying they are connected. So, uh, even to this day, like you said, 2021, December 13th, the number one killer among men, African American men specifically, is heart disease. You can get heart disease from stressing. You can get hypertension, diabetes, and so many other things specifically with African American men running generationally. So, in addition to that, being hyper vigilant, that stress, all of those things, the mental can impact the physical, and the physical can impact the mental. So those are some of the harmful things if one is not, just checking his overall wellness, not just his mental health or not just his physical health. You got to ensure that both those things are correct. Because even if you're not emotionally well, and one of the issues is I think a lot of people think that mental illness and mental health is the same thing. Like they hear that illness piece and they automatically assume Hollywood and somebody's in a dark room screaming and yelling hair all over the place or in a
Yeah.
mania state. But mental health is your overall well-being. You know what I mean? That's your emotional, that's your mental and your physical comprised into one. So it's harmful if you don't slow down and pace yourself, or you don't reduce that hypervigilance, or you don't monitor your stress levels and identify your triggers and find positive ways to cope. So those things can be detrimental to not only you but the people vicariously around you too.
Word, word. I think you bring up a good point about the relationship between mind, body, heck, spirit, and what and how those are all how they all intersect, right? And so I have Marcel here, and he says he felt like his previous position triggered him to have diabetes, right? And so what you were speaking to, this stress, right? This stress that many black men feel already just by the very nature of the position. This similar to folk who watch sports, the quarterback, right? Like as soon as you're the quarterback, you get everything, right? You get everything. You get the good and you get the bad, right? If things go wrong, then it's on you. And so it feels like black folk are immediately walking into this position of unfortunately being at a deficit, right? When we view it from the lens of white folk. And so that stress influences things like overeating and what have you, which can turn into something like diabetes and physical ailments. So thank you, Marcel, for sharing. I know you spoke about relationships. You spoke about the 45-year, I'm about to say 45-year-old, 45-year anniversary of, or not anniversary, but marriage of that man and that woman. And so can you speak to just the what and I hate using the term healed, man, because it's so cliche now, but what an unhealed man looks like and how they show up in a relationship.
So I mean, to be real with you, like I don't really like that word either. Like I like it as a motto, as a staple, but the actions to it, because that's ongoing. You know what I mean? Like I don't think one can, like, all right, cool, I'm healed, I'm done. Like I think one still has to do the work. Like like it's always a practice to be healed or to navigate that journey. But for one that's not, I guess, quote unquote, healed or in pursuit of being healed in his relationship, it can be met with a lot of resistance, whether that's poor communication, whether that's reckless behavior, whether that's lack of, or I guess the emotional maturity piece, attachment styles, all of those things can be comprised in it if one is not only healed or aware of themselves in the relationship. You know what I'm saying? And I think not only for men itself, but for women as well. Like when you enter in a relationship or a partnership with somebody, you definitely have to ensure that you've done the work on self prior to that. And a lot of people don't, though. A lot of people feel that they can hop into a relationship with that baggage and somebody's going to accept it or somebody's going to compromise, which they're not obligated to. And I think a lot of people got this mindset of traditional relationships where people were just staying. But now we view it, we see it like it's so many different opportunities for one to go to another relationship or to just be solo and deal with their own stuff. So hopefully that's the outcome in many places.
Yeah, yeah. When I think about men and relationships and how they show up, I think about my last one of my last relationship that got me into therapy. She actually hit me up one time like, I'm sick of you talking about me on your podcast. Like it was that bad. And I'm like, sis, it was that bad. And then she ended up going to therapy, and she was like, "Yo, that shit was bad." You know what I mean? Just based on where we were in our journey, and how we'll put will justify being in unhealthy relationships because of things like fear, right? Because of insecurity. And I have no idea who I am. I was on with Tavis Smiley today, name drop. I feel like Kanye when he was in when he
Oh,
was
Drake
on
Champs.
yeah, he
Yeah.
was on Drake Champs. Like I went Elon Musk. No, he said Elon picked me up. And then the CEO of Balenciaga, he shined my shoes. Right. And so when I was on with Tavis Smiley today, he asked me about um what is the purpose of ensuring one's mental health as a man. And I talked about identity, right? Like identity is so big, and that's why we see so many young brothers, old brothers, who have no idea of their place in the world because they don't know who they are, right? So can you speak to that?
So I think also it comes with accountability too. Like your man that just typed in, he said like what he said, he's in that leadership position, or he's in some position to where he felt like that job was causing him stress or causing him those health issues. So like that accountability piece, like he feels like one, either he got that position or he has to live up to that position in which he was given. So that can be an issue in itself too. And that perception of others can cause one to be as stressful as heck too, just thinking that you have to be a certain way and not truly living or doing what you feel that you should be doing for yourself. Like those things can be detrimental to anybody, specifically the man, an African American man at that, because oftentimes you got to provide, or you got a secondary job, or you in this relationship, you got children, you got family, you got so much riding on your shoulders. So it's difficult or to find those pockets of places to grieve or to process or to debrief, even if it's not a full-pledged let me go and count to 10, or let me go and meditate, or let me write in the journal, or let me hit the gym. Because oftentimes you might be in a situation to where you back to back to back, or you got this wall up to where you can't let anybody in, and they viewing you, going through this cycle or this destruction period. So those things can definitely be one of those things. But like you said, I like what you said too, as far as the um what you when you and Travis was talking.
Yeah. And in Kali, when he talks about just the idea of healed, he says healed suggests that we are broken, but I believe we are responding appropriately to our environment. So it's more of continued unlearning and learning. And I completely agree with that, right? And when we talk about learning and unlearning, I know when we talk about this idea of identity, we look no further, right? And again, I'm always talking about Jay Z, how I'm super critical of Jay Z, even though it might be one of my favorite rappers of all time. But when you love something enough, you love it enough to critique it. I think that's what Baldwin said, but he said it more eloquently than that. And so when we think about learning, unlearning, and identity, the role of hip hop and its influence on black men and their wellness, would you say that there's a a relationship that exists there, like some of what hip hop talks to us about and what it preaches and how it impacts how we show up and subsequently our mental health?
Yeah, yeah. So for me, I know personally, I'm careful what I ingest, not just from a food intake perspective, but from social media, from music, from TV, all of those things. And I do believe they can have lasting impacts on us. But I would say, I guess I'm in agreement that certain so in certain aspects I do believe it to be art, like I'm just creating this masterpiece. So it could be my lyrics is just art, as if Denzel was doing art in Training Day. You know what I'm saying? We don't view Denzel as a, I mean, that person all the time, that specific character. So for some artists, I do view it as, oh, he artistic, he got lyrics, he got bars. But some artists too, I feel that it's attention grabbing, and it could be driving the narratives within certain specific parts in different areas, and it could be detrimental because people are viewing it and people are gravitating to it and trying to implement those things. So it could be depending on where you are.
So has hip hop influenced you in a well? I'll rephrase it. How has hip hop influenced you?
Um, I mean, I guess overall though, I don't know if it's a hip hop thing, but from a style perspective, you know what I mean? I'm from Richmond, so I like to dress a certain way. And I
What
guess
what that mean? I'm not familiar with Richmond. Y'all a little further down south. So I know y'all
yeah,
wear like green Tims and stuff. You know what I mean? So
green temp. So you talking about the beef and broccolis or something, man? Uh, but nah, I mean, so yeah, style wise, a lot of phones, Jordans, forces, depending on it. And I guess one would say those are things that uh shifted over from a hip hop perspective, Um, but I guess everybody now equate hip hop to everything, like from
okay,
an influence perspective. You know what I'm saying? So whether that's the movies or because every movie probably got a artist or rapper in it. It's a lot of people who actually did theater in class or was thespians and not getting jobs, and a lot of people who are rappers and entertainers got these followings, they're getting all the positions. So it all depends. I guess that influence is pretty much in everything.
word. Because I asked just because again I have this interesting relationship where I'm sitting here, I might be playing a video game and Jeezy come on and he got all the cocaine in the world that he's selling to everybody right then and there, and then I have to stop myself and say, "Oh, fam, like I recognize the harm that this caused." And I think one of the things that when we talk about this idea of accountability, and maybe why I'm so critical of folk, first holding myself accountable, but then looking at what that means and the impact that it has in our community. So I know just like many of us, I think every therapist when Meek Mill posted Philly's own posted. We got to find a way to make like therapy cool again, or something like that. And every therapist worth they salt came out, and it was just like, fam, what are you talking about? Like you and this goes speaks to the influence because people it started a conversation, right? And so, conversely, when he's talking about, popping mollies and, back then he talked about he had an addiction to him, like how that influences us as black boys and black men and how it impacts our mental health.
Yeah. So and the wild thing is when he said that statement, man, I made two posts and they went crazy. Actually, the video went wild because I wanted to ensure that my fellow therapist wasn't getting discouraged. When those celebrities or socialites post or tweet those certain things, getting all the attention when it's actually people out here doing the work. So I made a video to encourage my therapists, my fellow therapists, clinicians to keep up the good work and keep going. And then I made another post um, highlighting those same contradictions. You know what I'm saying? And that a lot of people was tagging them. I think that got over maybe close to 2-3 thousand um, comments on it alone on my IG just because. But I do think it's a walking contradiction a lot of times for artists. Or it could just be a growth period, you know what I'm saying? So
Mm,
and the wild thing is like they talk even if you take the artist from your city, Meek, like you said, like promote all his money, promote all this high living and everything, and then a month later he was just saying he's broke, he need a lawyer or whatever the case is. So either way, it's a contradiction. So I think a lot of people are mature enough and wise enough to just view it as, oh, they just rapping, that's just art, that's just that's entertainment, they're trying to get paid. But it is some people who actually hold on to every word and try to mimic those things, or try to feel that they have to do a certain thing because these entertainers and artists are doing them.
yeah, yeah. I just think of for me and again, still trying to extend grace because we recognize in this, I ain't always have that light wasn't always switched on for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wasn't always out here saying, Excuse me, Black Queen, you mind if I talk to you for a minute?" You know what I mean? I was doing the, "Hey, let's grab you by the hand in the club. You can't hear me," right? I'm thinking it makes sense, but in actuality, no, that's problematic behavior, right? And so I'm extending enough grace for that. But I do think there's a sense of accountability, as that might be the word of the day. Accountability that comes from having a platform, and unfortunately, we seeing so many people like live their trauma aloud, right? Different than the space that how we do it, or is it? Right? We talk about our experiences. We just don't have no beat behind us, right? And maybe because we're actively making working to reduce harm in ourselves and reduce harm in another. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's the way we articulate it, because we're not articulated it the way that they're articulated with the destruction words or the metaphors, the similes and things like that. So it could be viewed differently, but I think all in all, some people might just want that message out there. You know what I'm saying? Because even if you like you don't really rock with J. Cole, like his message is a little bit different, but some of his bars are saying the same thing. His tone, his vernacular, everything is just different. You know what I'm saying? So it can be that deliverer too, who's delivering the message.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I listen, I like J. Cole, right? I think there's some consistency issues, right? And again, maybe it's a part of the growth journey, right? Maybe it's why I got upset after loving 444. Like 6 months later, I'm like, dog, you 52 years old talking about, yo, I feel bad. And it's just like, you know what I mean? Because it's like you recognize the influence that you've had to this point. And unfortunately, everybody doesn't have that come to Jesus moment where they're able to say, "Hey, you know, I sold coke," or "Hey, I made big pimping, and I promoted this type of imagery." And but I'm now gonna switch it around because some folk, once they get into that lifestyle, for most folk who get into that lifestyle, there is no do over, right? It's just like once we're in this life, we're stuck for whatever reason. And so it just had me thinking about just the role hip hop has played in our in our view of mental health and just us as black men, because as we said earlier, it's all intertwined.
And I think in most cases too, whoever got the loudest platform win. You know what I'm saying? So if it is the entertainer with the reach of a million people, they're gonna be louder than you and I with a couple thousand, people. And we can be saying the most awesome message. We can be writing this book with a lot of intense knowledge in it, but somebody else can come along and just got a bigger platform and can write ABCs all through it, and they sell out or they garner the attention that is supposed to be transpired to those people who are actually doing the work. So it happens that way sometimes.
Yeah. So how do you stay grounded when it happens? So full transparency, right? And shout out to the homie King J Barnett doing amazing things out here. Shout out to Rashawn doing amazing thing. Paul Bache, Aaron. There's so many folk.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
lot.
you know yourself, and I be sitting back on my Oh, I don't like that. What was that from Belly? I don't like this. I don't like this one bit. Right when he sit there with the perm,
With the
but
banana.
you exactly. And I don't even know if to say pause or not, because toxic masculinity and all of that. But we adults here, right? So,
Yeah.
but with that, like, how do you stay grounded? For me, I have to remind myself, like, because again, I partially blame hip hop. This competition over collaboration until you realizing that all these white folk out here they collaborating. Your elites are collaborating. So and then when you collaborate, then you realize like, oh no, we all in the same race together, right? And so, but how do you stay grounded when you see the Meeks talking about therapy? You're like, dog, I've been in the trenches.
Yeah. So for me, to be honest with you, like I told you, before I even had a bachelor's, I was an entrepreneur. Before I mean, like, so I had two houses and a couple of businesses before I even had a bachelor's. So me pausing that, going back to school, get my bachelor's in clinical psychology, then get my master's in clinical mental health counseling, then starting my journey into the licensing process. Like I was already thinking, like, yo, I'm specifically going to help people. And to be real with you, those people that you mentioned, like I'm good with. You like I don't got no issue with them. I refer to them all the time. As a matter of fact, I talked to Rashawn today. Um, talked to Jay today and a couple more other people just on some, yo, you good? You know, pace yourself. You doing a lot, da da da, on some, you know, cool stuff. Like
Yeah.
I don't view this competition. Like I'm just doing the work. It's gonna reach who it's gonna reach. It's enough people out here that need the message, regardless of who it come from. I'm just glad that I'm in the conversation to be mentioned, you know, with the people who are out here doing it as well. You know, because it could have been a different way. My name could be mentioned with some people who are not as upstanding.
Yeah.
So for me, I mean, I probably can speak for them too. Like we don't view this competition.
Yeah.
We don't been on panels together. We done been on podcasts and all kind of other stuff together. So it's always love. And I know from my end, man, like I just want to do the work. Like it's gonna reach who it need to reach. No competition besides that guy in the mirror. You know, I'm you know, it's just me. Everything else is just there. You know what I mean?
Word, word. No, I completely agree. They dope brothers, and it just shows you how, first, how small social media is, right? How folk are able to connect, but also shows you how lack of representation there is in this field, right? Whereas it's somewhere between 2 and 4% of black psychologists, psychiatrists, and mental health professionals are black, right? And so it's just like we all know, and it's just like it's just you get that look, right? You get that. Everybody even got to throw up the fifth, but you just I mean, that head nod because we recognize, what we're pushing back against. We're doing a work that I do believe is a calling, right? And because it demands a lot. And so, with that being said, it demanding or not, it being demanding, what does your self care look like?
And my self care is phenomenal, good brother. So I
Oh, we
do a
see.
lot of
Listen, fam, we see the foams in the background. Like
yeah.
everybody's here.
So like for real, like I rock with my family a lot, man. I got two girls, and a fiance. I'm getting married in March, so I spend a lot of time with them. Like my life is like very low stress. Like it's not really like I said, I move how I want to move. I do what I want to do. I'm pretty much free. So I do a lot of meditating, mindfulness, and stuff. And I journal a lot. I exercise a lot. I definitely ensure that I'm still active. I go to kickboxing a couple of days a week, you
Okay.
know, so I'm pretty much free, man. And then I serve my community, so I'm always out engaging, inspiring, and modeling a certain thing, so my community can know what it is. Like, oh, he from where we from, you know what I'm saying? And I want that to be for my daughters. So when I'm doing community events, they there with me. You know, they passing out different stuff. They feeding the less fortunate, or you know, now they're inspiring, saying they want to put together certain initiatives. So for me, that's a lot of self care too. Just being able to just have an abundance of time with them.
Word. And so speaking of your daughters and speaking of being a father, we was lamenting earlier before I hit the record button about some things, right? We'll keep that between us. But when we talk about, fatherhood, what does a healthier, and that's what we'll call it, what does a healthier version of you mentally, physically, and spiritually and emotionally mean to the two daughters that you're raising?
Yeah. So I think what a lot of parents feel like how I grew up, you know, like children didn't really have voices. It was, yo, this is grown folks' business, stay over there type stuff. But for me, I'm more of a, yo, this is a learning process. You're a sponge right now. You got to suck all this up. You know what I'm saying? So I definitely ensure that I put them in a position to learn everything they can because I didn't have a me, you know. So to them, like they got an opportunity to not only learn emotional maturity, mental health, wellness, entrepreneurship, you know, communication, like a lot of different things. So I ensure that I'm doing that. And I think a lot of parents oftentimes overcompensate with other things or material things and not necessarily those life principles, you know. So those things can be detrimental as well. Like we're talking about communication, we're talking about attachment styles, or um you know, just like coping and different things, to where like you got this kid, and you don't even know their favorite color. You don't know what they into, or you want them to live the way that you want them to live, and they got their own identity or they got their own perception of what they want to do. But of course, no, you're gonna do what I say type thing. So for me, a healthy relationship with their parent is to have that open dialogue. And for the people out there who don't know, it's different parenting styles, and those things can be phenomenal if you do them, implement them correctly. um, because it can affect their relationship that you have with your children, one, but also how your children are raised to be adults and interact with different people in the office or in the community, and in their relationships. Even if even if you look now, you probably can go to work tomorrow, or somebody who's viewing us can go to work tomorrow and look around the office. It's somebody who don't know how to communicate. It's somebody who shut down when they met with resistance, or become cantankerous when somebody just asked them a question. Like, all of those things can be indications of how they were raised or how they wasn't raised. So when we talk about their parenting styles or the attachment styles, all of those things show up in our relationships with our peers or our intimate relationships. So being a healthy parent, you're monitoring those things, you're crafting those things, but most importantly, I think you're modeling, certain behaviors.
Word. Well said. Well said. Speaking of healthy parenting, as we get ready to wrap up, uh, we're talking about parenting. We're talking about fatherhood. I listen. I don't pay attention to. I I'm not on the shade room. I'm not. I don't follow the shade room because I think that's problematic, right? But I do go there from time to time to see what's happening on the other side of the world, right? With my people. And one of the things that came up last week, and I wanted to just get your thoughts on it as a clinician and as a father, and the people will be able to see it on the screen. Um, there was a big firestorm conversation about little boys specifically having a kitchen set, and it got so big. The litmus says it got to Cardi B, where Cardi B is out here talking about, hey, this is problematic thinking, which salute to Cardi. So what are your thoughts on, first, on this idea of black boys cooking in a kitchen as a toy, whether it's a toy or real, it don't matter, but cooking in the kitchen?
So one, I would say, I think again that goes back to those gender identity things, and I think a lot of people are ignorant to it. A lot of people probably felt like, I don't know the context, and because like you, I don't engage in certain things, so I don't know the context. So I guess I'm taking it as in they were assuming that this boy would turn, or is identified as soft or something for having a kitchen set or wanting a kitchen set. Um, but either way, to me, that's ignorant because, perfect example, Gordon Ramsay, $220 million. That's his net worth, and all he
Yeah.
do is cook or critique different chefs, right? But more importantly, cooking is a life skill, regardless of gender. You know what I'm saying? But so to me, I don't get the logic in that. And to be real with you, like, it's cooking, that right there was just probably one of the many examples in which people add to masculinity or a notch of masculinity. Because even I remember growing up in the projects, and we had a lot of boys that know how to flip. We used to pull the mattresses out.
Mattress out. Yep.
Yeah, so, but think about how many men you see doing gymnastics. You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing. Or cheerleaders, like, they were phenomenal. I'm sure they could have been in the Olympics if they would have kept it up, and we was young doing all that. So, but that cooking thing, I view that as a life skill. Everybody should know how to cook, and I'll take it a step further. Prior to my relationship now, like, I still do it every now and again, but when it was just my daughter and I, every Saturday I'm banging pots and pans, I'm vacuuming loud, so she can know when she do get in a relationship in the future, this guy is not gonna tell her, "Oh, that's for women. I ain't cleaning up. I ain't doing XYZ. Like, that's a woman's job." No, these are human roles, not specifically gender roles. So, and again, I think a lot of people are ignorant to it. It's no way that the sexual identity or the sexual preference is going to be determined by chores or life skills. You know what I'm saying? If one
Yeah.
wants to be attracted to a certain sex or identify a certain way, it's already embedded in them. They don't need that, you know, chore or task or whatever. This color or what, like my favorite color is pink. And you know, funny story. We was talking about the group home earlier. I don't know how much time you got, so I'll be
No,
quick.
no, we good.
Okay, yeah. So when I was in the group home, it was at any given time it was between 12 and 13 of us, right? All males, all male group home. And at probably 8 or 9, my favorite color turned to pink because for me it was strategy. We had this young guy in there and he had poor social cues. Like now as a clinician, I know he was autistic, but back
Mhm.
then it was just like, bro, what do you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah,
So like my man would use your toothbrush, he would use your brush, he would just no boundaries, no social cues, no none of that, right? So for me, like if you tell him like pink is for girls, don't touch it, you know what I mean? So my stuff was safe. So everything I had was pink. You know, what I mean? My toothbrush, my hairbrush, my accessories. Fast forward, playing ball in college, in high school, and you know all that. Your accessories pink too. Something happened in the locker room, you can easily identify your stuff. Went to the military, the same thing. Everybody had the blues, the blacks, the camos. My stuff was pink. So when the door, you know, the barracks and everything get ramsacked or some lost in the field, I can easily identify my stuff. So for me, it was more about strategy, not thinking that somebody is going to assume, you know, I'm a certain gender or whatever. But even now, to this day, my fiance is a beautiful black woman, you know, but I say partner just to ensure that I'm annoying people. You know what I'm saying? Like because just because one, I think I definitely believe that it's privileged that we can be in a position to do that because a lot of people are still chastised or demonized for their preference or choice in who they
yeah,
date. So I do believe it's privilege in being able to say my fiance or my lady or my wife or whatever. So I definitely say partner. Just to one, it's none of your business. It doesn't really matter. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? And then two, again, there's not a lot of people who can say that without being, you know, objectified and things like that. So,
yeah,
you know, but for me, yeah, man, like I would definitely give my son a kitchen set because it's a life skill. It's something that he has to learn. And the irony of that whole situation, it's probably a young lady or a person now saying, "Yo, like I'm doing all the cooking, like you never cook." You know what I'm saying? Or like all of that stuff happens when they're young. All of those
yeah.
things are embedded and constantly grows up with this young mind. You know, it's constantly being crafted. If he shut down now and repeatedly shut down, by the time he is to the age of, yeah, I got a family, I got to cook for him. Oh wait, I don't know how to cook. I don't know how to iron. I don't know how to do, you know, basic life skills because this was viewed as a woman's role or a girl's task. And now, you know, in the office, he's wrinkled or he's not eating properly and all of those things. I think people are just, they over sexualize a lot of different things, not knowing that it doesn't work that
Agreed.
way.
Agreed. No, they definitely over sexualize everything. I was ear hustling on a conversation, and this sister was like, her her boy her child's father was like, her boys, their sons are older now, right? They like, I want to say like 7. I want to say like the youngest might be 7, and so, or 6 or 7, and she shouldn't walk around in a bra and panties, right? And she like, fam, what are you talking about, right? This, I've nursed them. They came out of me. Right. And so, when we talk about this over sexualization of children, right, these are some of the ways that it happens, because we're it's like, this is forbidden, this is a forbidden area, you're not supposed to see these things, and so they become maladjusted in certain areas when it comes to this idea of sex, sexuality, etc., etc., etc. And when it comes to the young boy in the kitchen set, man, again, it's one of those things, and I think it reinforces the point of why we don't necessarily need to be involved in all of these spaces, right, and social media and things like that, because you get sucked down these rabbit holes, and next thing you know, you arguing with a bot. 9 times out of 10, it's a bot, or is somebody who's bored, who has issues with their own mental health, emotional health, or they just effing with you, and you took the bait, right? Uh, we talk about survival. That's important. We talk about it not being a part of anything related to his identity, sexual identity. That's important. But maybe he just wanted it. You know what I mean? Or maybe he didn't just want it, and the parent got it. They saw it and they got it and they thought of him and gave it to him. Like sometimes we overanalyze so many things that we don't allow children to just be children, right?
Yeah.
He's just chilling at his kitchen, right? And yeah, he ain't got to worry about, yeah, later on for survival and things like that, for sure. But right now, he's he's meeting those developmental milestones by doing this, right? He's working on hand-eye coordination. He's working on critical thinking. Okay, what I'm gonna put this in here and put that in there, and patience. And so all these other skills that are being honed, well, folk so hyper focused on it. Maybe it's it's just something with the black community in general when it comes to sexual identity in black boys. Were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I mean, again, Gordon Ramsay, man, 220 million. Quarterbacks not really making that. Running backs not making that. If they are, it's for that brief time period. Your rappers and entertainers not, what I mean? So I don't know, man. But like you said, I think it's something that's been reinforced through us from generation to generation that hey, if he do this, he's gonna turn a certain way, or if she do this, nah, like yo, let kid to me, kids are kids, and that developmental period is definitely important, and how you respond to them developing is definitely important as well. Because again, like to me, these are human roles, these are human skills that he's gonna need. If he can't have it as a kid, when is it appropriate time for him to learn? Like when it's on a real stove and potentially burn your house down or burn
Yeah,
himself? You
yeah,
know what I'm saying? Like that's how I view it. Like this is a learning opportunity if he's 6 or 7. Hey, make sure you cut your play owl off. Make sure you put your pots and pans out the way, so you're not causing a fire or whatever. So as he is developing into this teenager or this adolescent, he knows like, oh, I had a play set when I was 6. Let me cut this off before I burn some, or let me put these dishes away. Like to me, that's more critical than saying, oh, he's gonna be attracted to something else, or he's gonna be soft, or whatever the case is. Like I don't really understand that thinking. You know what I'm saying? Like, nah. Even with girls, little girls playing with toys, like trucks or army figures or whatever. And to be real with you, like my daughter is 9 now. I remember when she was 6, she went to this birthday party and this lady was like, "Oh, the girls getting Frozen characters." And my daughter looked around like, "Nah, I want to paint Deadpool." You know what I'm saying? So downstairs, it's a Deadpool in the snow, like what she painted at 6.
yeah,
Uh, and it was just weird because she looked at me like, because in my house is gender affirming. It's I mean everything. It's like inclusive. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Um, so when she looked at me, she was like, cause she know like I don't say, oh, this is the girl, this is boys or whatever. So when the lady was like, oh no, the girls got to get the Frozen characters, she was like, no, I want to paint Deadpool. So it just was wild. But for
yeah.
me, like that's what it is. Like I'm promoting a healthy human being, not specifically a healthy gender. You know what I'm saying? Like, nah, like you can do whatever you want to do. You can break down all those barriers and accomplish what you want to accomplish as a human. Like human qualities, being a good human is definitely better impacting than teaching somebody how to be a good boy or a good girl.
Word, word. Listen, man, time flies. I'm sure we could sit here and just chop it up forever. Not that I'm on any time constraints because I ain't getting paid for this, not yet. Right? We're gonna throw that in the atmosphere. So when I do send my daughter back to private school, I might have some coins. So again, hit that subscribe button. James, listen, it's been a pleasure, man. I appreciate you coming through. So how can the people reach you?
Good brother. I definitely appreciate you extending the invitation. I think the easiest way to get to me is through my website, www.mentoheal.com. And on that website, you can subscribe to my YouTube as well, which is monetized. So I get a couple dollars.
Let me
Um,
let me borrow the file then, man. You know what I mean? Send a couple people my way, like
my
Usher.
My website also has my book on there, so make sure you go and get that. Good stock and stuffer too. And it also has my board game on there. Yep, that's right. Black man created a board game called Cheesy Dates, so that's on there as
Wait,
well. And of
so
course,
I'm sorry to cut you off, but back to the board game because I did see that. So what's the premise of the board game?
so man, Cheesy Dates, man. So it's this is the board. Of course, it got the pawn, the dice, and two sets of cards. One set of cards is different date ideas because oftentimes people run dry on that spontaneity. So it's probably 40 to 50 different date ideas in there. And then the other set of cards is those tough conversations that you should have in a
Hmm.
relationship or in a marriage or before the relationship. You know, like how do you handle conflict? Do you got a will? uh what if I lose my job? Are you willing to take care of me? You know, and just a lot of
Oh,
different
you
stuff.
got them breakup questions like that,
Or them real life
or
questions, man.
them real life that we either gonna stay together or we breaking up after we play this.
Exactly. And you know what's wild though? I was conducting a marriage session, man, and this couple been married probably 4 years at the time. And it came up to where the husband, he was like, "Yo, I'm tired. Like, I don't help you get through school. You got you a good job now. I want to take this year off, you know, and just center myself and get back." And his wife for 4 years looked at him like, "I ain't taking care of no grown man." You know what I'm saying? Like on some. Not
Wow.
to mention, like, yo, we not only that, like, we're married. Like, I help you get your bachelor's. You know,
Yeah.
you got your job now. Like, I just want to, you know, so it's a tough a couple different questions in there that will assist you in navigating like, yo, who am I about to get in a relationship with, or who am I in this relationship with? So I'm just fortunate, man. I, you know, just doing different stuff.
Word, word. So once again, and you can get the board game, you can get the book, you can find out how to connect with James, aka Mr. Men to Heal, at his website, mentoheal.com. Listen, brother, I appreciate you coming through. Thank you so much.
My man, appreciate you. Thanks for extending the invitation. Keep up the good
Mm.
work too, boss.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt, you too. And so, ladies and germs, that is all. I may be back tomorrow night because I see it's some ish happening in the world with your man Joe Biden. He's saying no, he not extending the student loan deferment. Fam, I wasn't paying it anyway, but I'm still offended that you would have the unmitigated gall to say, dang, we back to business as usual. And so maybe I'll come on and have a conversation about Joe Biden as well as a few other things. Listen, shout out to Marcel, Kali for coming through. Shout out to James for coming through. Until next time, peace.